All right, guys, let's review everything we've learned so far. Slide 1, if you're looking at Class Kick, let's look at slide 1. Leah earned $17 for 3 hours walking her dogs. Last week, she walked dogs for 9 hours. How much did she make last week? All right, so we know that Leah earned $17 for 3 hours. We want to know how much she made last week. Well, last week she walked dogs for 9 hours. So notice we have a rate here. We have $17 for 3 hours, but we have a half a rate. We have $9. 9 hours. We don't know how much money she made. So we're going to create, because we have one rate plus a half of one, we're going to create a ratio table. And we're going to look at $17 for 3 hours. So she made $17, that's my dollars, for 3 hours. Now we want to know how much did she make last week. Well, what did she make last week? Well, she worked 9 hours. Well, what are we going to do? Now listen, I need to know how much she made. Well, look at here. This is a rate. Let's find an equivalent fraction. What do you do to 3 to get 9? Yeah, you multiply by 3. So what are you going to do to 17? You're going to do the same exact thing. Multiply by 3. So 17 times 3 gives me 51. So how much did she make last week? Leah made $51 last week. Now notice these are equivalent ratios. If I were to take 51 over 9 and simplify them by putting them in a sled, I'm going to get back to 17/3. Right? So all I wanted to know was how much she made. I was just looking for that guy right there. Let's do another problem. All right? This is a different problem. Anaya has 20 blue bracelets and 8 green bracelets. What is the ratio of Anaya's blue bracelets to green bracelets? Now notice I have 20 blue bracelets and I have 8 green bracelets. But look at the question. It says, what is the ratio of? There's no other numbers. We don't have a rate, right? It's just saying, what is the ratio of blue bracelets to green bracelets? What is the ratio of? That means I can either write it as a fraction, right? I could do a number over another number. I could write it with a colon, or I could write the ratio with the 2. All right, so I could do A to B, A colon B, A over B. So let's look. She had blue bracelets to green bracelets. Well, how many blue bracelets do you have? You have 20. 2. How many green bracelets do you have? 8. Now, there's my ratio. What's the ratio of Anaya's blue bracelets to green bracelets? It's 20 to 8. But notice, push back. Notice 20 to 8, if I were to put them into a sled, 20 to 8, I can pull out a factor of 4, and I'm left with 5 to 2. So always simplify your ratios. 5 to 2 is my final answer. That is my ratio of blue bracelets to green bracelets. So for every 5 blue bracelets, there are 2 green bracelets. Okay, that's my answer. Look at slide 3. The aquarium has 10 starfish and 12 snow crabs. What is the ratio of, bing, 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 that tells me I'm just writing a ratio, starfish to the total number of animals in the tank? So we're doing starfish to the total. Well, how many starfish are there? There are 10 starfish to the total. Well, how do you get the total? You have to add up all of the animals. Well, what's 10 plus 12? 22. So now what do I do to 10 to 22? Put it in a sled. So I'm going to pull out a factor of 2, and I'm going to get 5 to 11. And there's nothing else that can be pulled out because they're both prime. There is your ratio of starfish to total number of animals. For every 5 starfish, there are 11 total animals. All right, let's look at slide 4. All right, let's apply what we've learned to another problem. Luis is driving at a constant speed of 65 miles per hour. That per hour means 1 hour. At that rate, how long will it take him to drive 455 miles? Well, I know he's going 65 miles per hour. I want to know how long it takes him to drive 455 miles. Well, let's find a ratio table. Here we go. We know he's gone 65 miles in 1 hour. So that's miles in 1 hour. I want to know 455 miles. Well, I can do several things. I can actually go, well, what would 2 hours be? Well, 2 hours be 65 times 2. That's going to give me 130. So you can go 130 miles in 2 hours. Well, what if I went 3 hours? Well, that'd be 65 times 3. That's going to give me 15. 18 plus 1 is 19. That gives me 195 miles. Well, what if you went 4? Now notice this is getting pretty big. 4 hours. Well, let's do 65 times 4. 20, 24, 25, 26, 260. Well, we're getting closer. 5. 65 times 5. See, 6, 30, 31, 32. It's 325. We're getting there. 65 times 6 gives me 30, 36, 37, 38, 39, 390. Oof. 65 times 7, 35, 42, 43, 445. There we go. 455. So how many hours, how long will it take him to drive 455 miles? It will take him, uh-oh, that's not 6, that's 390. I forgot. Sorry, I didn't do the 7. 7, that's going to be 4. So how long will it take him? It'll take him 7 hours to go 455 miles. Now that was a lot of work. Personally, I would not have done that. I would have said, wait a minute. How many times will 65 go into 455? I could have multiplied by a number. Well, if you don't know what to multiply by, what's the inverse of multiplication? Division. So I could have taken 455 divided by 65, and you would have gotten 7. And if you check, 65 times 7 gives me 455. So 1 times 7 gives me 7. So how long will it take him to drive 455 miles? It will take him 7 hours to drive 455 miles. All right, let's do slide 5. The ratio of girls to boys in Mrs. Gonzalez's class is 5 to 6. How can this statement be interpreted? In other words, what does it mean? Well, my ratio is girls to boys. And I know it's 5 to 6. 5 to 6. So what does that mean? It means there are 5 girls to 6 boys. So every 5 girls, you will see 6 boys. That is what it means. All right, slide 6. At a bakery, Aaron uses 16 cups of flour for 5 batches of cookies. What is the unit rate per batch of cookie? Well, what do we know? I want to know I've got 16 cups for 5 batches of cookies. What is the unit rate? Unit means 1 per batch of cookies. So I want to know how much flour you'll need for 1 batch of cookie. So let's look at what we've got. I know it takes me 16 cups of flour for 5 batches of cookies. I don't want 5. I want 1 batch. Well, what are you going to do to get 1? You're going to divide by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 16 divided by 5, well, take your calculator. 16 divided by 5. 5 goes into 16 3 times. 1 left over, and next a decimal. Bring it straight up and a 0. 5 goes into 10 2 times. So it will be 3.2. So what is the unit rate per batch of cookies? You will need 3.2 cups of flour for 1 batch of cookies. All right, let's do slide number 7. All right, at the apple orchard, it costs $7 for 5 pounds of apples. What is the cost of 1 pound of apple? All right, I know my rate. I have $7 for 5 pounds of apples. I want to know 1 pound. What am I going to do? What are you going to do to 5 to get 1? I'm going to divide by 5. So what are you going to do to 7? Divide by 5. So 7 divided by 5 gives me 1. Use your calculator. I've got this on here. 7 minus 5 is 2. And next a decimal and a 0. Bring down the 0. 5 goes into 20 4 times. So your answer is 1.4. But let's answer the question. The question says, what is the cost for 1 pound of apples? All right, so 1 pound of apples will cost, so the apples will cost, that means $1.4, but money has to have 2 places behind the decimal. What do you need an X right here to make it look like money? That's right, a 0. So the apples will cost $1.40 for 1 pound. It will be $1.40 for 1 pound of apples. All right, slide 8. All right, Mary bought 8 packages of clay for a total of $32. All right, so we got 8 packages of clay, cost me $32. At that same rate, how much will 18 packages of clay cost? I want to know the cost for 18 packages. And it says, hint, use unit rate. Uni means 1. That means I'm going to need to find out how much 1 package of clay costs. So let's set up a ratio table. I know that 8 packages cost $32. I'll put your dollar sign out there too. But I got to get to 18 packages. Well, I don't know what to multiply 8 by to get 18. So what can I do? Well, I can change that 8 to a 1, because I can always figure out what 1 package costs. What do you do to the 8 to get 1 package? You're going to divide by 8. So what are you going to do to 32 to get 1 package? How much that costs? Divide by 8. So what's 32 divided by 8? 4. So 1 package costs $4. Well, if 1 package costs $4, how are you going to figure out how much 18 packages cost? What are you going to do to 1 to get 18? Right, you're going to multiply by 18. So what are you going to do to 4? Same thing, multiply by 18. So 4 times 18, let's do it in your calculator, gives you 72. So 18 packages is going to cost me $72. So how much will 18 packages of clay cost? 18 packages costs $72. All right, slide 9. At last Saturday's ball game, the concession stand sold 14 hot dogs, 28 hamburgers, 45 bags of chips, and 50 soft drinks. What was the ratio of hot dogs and hamburgers sold to the number of soft drinks sold? Now look at that question. What was the ratio of? That tells me it's going to be a fraction. A fraction of what? Of hot dogs and hamburgers, and sold to the number of soft drinks sold. Now wait a minute, hot dogs and hamburgers to the number of soft drinks. What does that and mean? That means you got to combine the hot dogs and the hamburgers. So how do you combine them? With what operation? You're going to add. So we're going to do hot dogs and hamburgers to soft drinks. All right, so hot dogs and hamburgers. Ooh, that's kind of scary right there. How many hot dogs you had? 14. How many hamburgers you got? 28. What do you do with 14